Hi, how you doing? Today we will be learning about microscopes and microplastics. But let's start with microscopes. So you have your compound microscope that lets you actually view smaller specimens. And then you have your dissecting microscope that lets you view larger specimens or objects. But for the purposes of this video, we will be focusing more on your compound microscope. Compound microscopes are a specific type that magnify the thing that is being viewed through lenses. This is where it gets its name from the compounded lenses that it has that actually do the magnification, as I said. And then, generally speaking, this microscope has 4 parts: a head, a stage, a base, and an arm. And top down, it has some key parts, including the eyepieces, which actually let you adjust it so you can see the specimen. Then you have the nose piece that is directly underneath that and is connected to the objective lenses and rotates them so you can put them in the line of sight and actually use them to see the specimen. Then your objective lenses that, as I said, do the actual magnification, and you can change the magnification so you can see this specimen at the setting that you need. And then you have the stage that keeps the objects in place with a clipper and has knobs that let you control where you have it, so you have it at the place that you need so you can do your observation. Talking about knobs, you have 2 knobs on the side, a coarse adjustment and a fine adjustment that focus the image that you're viewing through your microscope so you can see the specimen in detail. And then finally, at the very bottom, you have your light switch and light adjustment that control the amount of light coming from the bottom up to the specimen and let you actually see what is happening on the stage. These are some of the more general terms because there are more technical and complicated aspects to the microscope, but for general use, these are the key parts that you need to understand about your compound microscopes.
Compound microscopes are very useful tools for observing small objects like microplastics. In order to get a clear view of the microplastics, you need to calibrate the microscope. In order to calibrate a microscope, you must start at the lowest objective lens, which is typically 4x or 10x magnification, allowing for a wider range of view, making the focusing easier later on. First, you want to adjust the eyepieces to accommodate to your eye spacing. Then, using the diopter adjustment, sharpen the image for each eye. Next, place the sample using the stage controls. Center the area of the sample you want to focus the lens on. Next, you want to focus the image by using the coarse adjustment knob to get the sample closer to the lens and a fine adjustment knob to make the image clearer on the lens. Next, you want to control the light. Increasing the brightness and contrast allows the sample to be as clear as possible on the lens. Once the image is clear, you can switch to a higher objective lens, like 40x, for greater detail. Repeat the fine adjustments as needed. By following these steps, you will now be able to observe the sample in high definition.
So, what are microplastics? Microplastics are pieces of plastic that come from factories or from bigger plastics breaking down into smaller plastics that can be so small they're microscopic. Any plastic less than 5 millimeters in length is considered a microplastic. Because they're so small, microplastics can get by our water filtering systems and spread into all bodies of water, including rivers and oceans. There are different types of microplastics, including fibers, which are thin and are usually colored. They look a little like a piece of thread from clothing. There's also fragments, which are differently shaped pieces of plastic. There's also film, which are thin pieces of plastic like from a grocery bag or food wrappers. And there's microbeads, which are small pieces of plastic that are shaped like beads or balls.
Why are microplastics important to biology and everyday life? Because of the small size of microplastics, microplastics could be harmful to the environment and human health, since they are small enough to be eaten or breathed into our bodies, causing damage to the internal parts. But the effects of microplastics aren't just directly harmful to us, their effects can also indirectly harm us. For example, indirectly speaking, microplastics affect us if our food already had microplastics. If a fish swallowed zooplankton, a tiny animal near the surface of water, which had already eaten microplastics, the microplastics from the zooplankton move to the fish. Then, as us humans eat the fish, The microplastics make their way into our bodies, causing damage to our organs. A more direct way microplastics affect us is through the tap water we drink, which had already been contaminated with microplastics. For this reason, microplastics are important to study in biology as they are obvious sources of potential harm to us. Because if you think of it, we shouldn't have plastic inside our bodies.
Today, we explained the basic parts of a compound microscope, how to calibrate one, and about microplastics. I hope you've learned about how microscopes work and how microplastics might be affecting our planet and our health, using simple words and examples while being entertained.